I'm Natalie Villalobos, and I have the extreme honor of leading the Women Techmakers program here at Google. I love that she shared that story about Megan, because I remember when Megan had said, oh yeah, so that job you interviewed for, you came in second. And I'm like, that's not the same as first. But when her and I were creating this opportunity of Women Techmakers, she was such an incredible woman in saying yes to me. And when you're taking on a big idea, when you're taking on a project, you really need people to get behind you to make it happen. And Megan was one of those people for me, and I'm forever supportive and grateful for her guidance. And a lot of times I feel like Women Techmakers is actually my startup within Google. It's about creating an opportunity for other people to thrive with something, even though it's not a product, it's really an organization and an opportunity for people around the world. We have an incredible team. I still have to go raise money and have a budget like everybody else and have metrics like everybody else. And so, I'm gonna hold that as my startup. It's not like any of the startups that these women, have created. They have different obstacles, and so we want to explore some of those obstacles, but also some of those meaty nuggets of knowledge in case you want to go out and start your own initiative or something within your company, or maybe even start your own company. So I have a handy dandy. Let's see if they're in here. It's like a magic show. All right, so a couple questions. So I haven't introduced any of you all because I think it's actually more powerful when women introduce themselves. Will you tell me your name and your company and what you're solving for?
Sure. Well, my name is Susan Gregg Koger. I am the Chief Creative Officer and co-founder of ModCloth. We inspire personal style and help our customers feel like the best versions of themselves. And we do that by designing clothing, like the dress that I'm wearing today, working with independent designers to carry their products, like the beautiful jumpsuit that
I also
Natalie
happen
is
to be wearing ModCloth.
Yes. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
She did not pay me for that.
I offered to.
Yes.
But you're supporting my business, which I love. And yeah, that's about. And I started ModCloth when I was 17. So ModCloth is basically my career. So I have a kind of a unique perspective. I've been doing it for 14 years this summer.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Melissa.
Great. Hi, I'm Melissa, the CEO and co-founder of retail Zipline. And different than Susan, my background actually was 10 years working at Gap Inc., always focused on solving the store execution problem, which is how do you get stores to do the work that headquarters is asking them to do when you have thousands of locations and tens of thousands of employees. And so I started Retail Zipline to help retailers also achieve the best version of themselves, but in their store environments and with their store teams. And so I'm doing this for about a year, and it was a very big jump going from enterprise, like a large Fortune 500 retailer, into a very small startup. So,
beautiful. And Bri?
Hey all, my name is Bri James, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Scrumpt. We're a lunch kit subscription service for kids, and my pediatrician mom is my co-founder, which is fun and awesome. And we're on a mission to make lunches for kids awesome and super easy.
Great. So that opportunity that I was talking to you about when Melody all of a sudden appears, now is going to be the time when we greet her to the stage.
Yay!
Welcome.
Hi, thanks. Oh, sorry, excuse me.
It's okay, we're going to edit that out. I actually was scared I was going to slip out on my heels, so you did it for
Excuse
me.
me, I mean, shoot, goodness.
Stuff and things. Fun fact, before Melody introduces herself and her company and what you're solving for, I've actually known Melody for many years. We actually went to high school together. So it's a privilege for me to be able to, as with a lot of the work that I do, shine a spotlight on incredible women, even if I happen to have known them for half my life. So Melody, will you tell us about StyleSeat and what you're solving for?
Absolutely. So in addition to being late, my name is Melody McCloskey. My company is StyleSeat, which is sort of like open table for hair salons and spas. In addition to the fact that we help women look and feel good and try and make it as easy as possible, we're also an amazing platform for female entrepreneurs. So 75% of the business owners that run their business on StyleSeat, we double their revenue in the first year, they're female business owners. So we help women in the beauty space run their businesses more effectively, better support their families, and be more successful.
Awesome. And we'll get into a little bit of like creating a mission-driven company. And I guess let's actually go to that. Why did you start StyleSeat? Like, what was the opportunity that you saw? Because really the theme of this panel is building an idea. So what was the idea that you had and you're like, got the crazy feeling of this needs to be a company?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I didn't know that much about the beauty industry before I started. I'd been in tech, I had worked in product for a while, but I looked around the room or sort of, the scene of Silicon Valley back in 2010, 2011, and I personally didn't know a single female founder. I knew tons of guys, dozens, hundreds of guys that had started companies, and I know that there were female founders at the time, but I just didn't know any personally. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that I wanted to start a company, and I was surrounded by really supportive friends, but I thought, okay, let me start a company in a female-driven sector, because I think I'll have a competitive advantage. And beauty is a massive industry. So that's sort of how I started into it, and I think what's been so surprising is after we started to get big and we built a product that there was a lot of need for, and our customers started to freak out and love it, and it went from, I'm starting this because it's a big financial opportunity, I want to build a big business, and turned into, me having conversations with these women who are saying, I've been in the beauty industry for 10 years, but I've always had to have a second job because I'm too scared to really make the leap. I have to be a paralegal assistant, or I have to, work second hours at this other company because I'm too scared to have my family be fully dependent on this because my business isn't as effective as it could be. And now with StyleSeat, it is, and I've been doing this full time, and I'm making more revenue than I ever have. And all of a sudden, it was like, wow, this, sort of surprised me. And now it's this really meaningful thing for our customers, and now that is definitely the core driver of who we are, and it's so much more interesting and profound than the money opportunity, right? Yeah. And that's what drives everyone at the company today. Like, they don't care as much about the revenue opportunity, it's really about helping people.
Bri, how about you?
So I was a lawyer once upon a time and had a buddy who was starting a company who gave me a job, and it was awesome. It got acquired, and I had another buddy who started another company, and the opposite happened. It folded kind of like that. But I had seen kind of both ends of the startup spectrum and knew I wanted to start something. What that was still a big question mark. But my mom was retiring, and we had always talked about starting something together. And she says, if you want me on board, it has to be healthy and it has to be for kids. And I was like, okay, noted. And I knew I wanted to do something in the product space. I don't have a tech background, so building something quickly that we can move to the market was important. So we just kind of boiled all of our passions together, and then that's how Scrumpt came to be.
Beautiful. Melissa?
Great. So I actually never thought that I would be an entrepreneur. Like, I didn't think it was in my blood. I never dreamed of it when I was a child. Even probably 3 years ago, I never really thought about it. But the way that Retail Zipline came is just I kept on facing the same problem within the Gap about store execution, started talking to a lot of other people in the industry. Everyone had the same problem. So why we exist is really to solve the problem that retailers face across the board.
So I started ModCloth in the summer between high school and college, and it really was kind of like a fun project. Like I grew up in South Florida, and actually I started, my co-founder is my husband today, who's my boyfriend at the time. I married the guy that I went to prom with, which is a whole other story. You can find me later and we can talk about that. Yeah, that's a different panel. Yeah, he's wonderful, amazing, Eric. And yeah, he was a, kind of had two friends in high school that they got together and they started a web hosting, web development business, basically going to small businesses in South Florida and telling them like, hey, it's 2001, let's get on the internet, I'll help you build a website. So he had built a few e-commerce sites and had designed a few different sites, and I just always loved fashion. I always had an eye for it. I remember being very young and having like a very strong opinion of like this pair of shoes versus that one. Like I was always just I remembered every single piece of clothing I ever saw, which it took me years and years to realize that that was actually a skill and wasn't just something that everyone could do. Like, I'd be like, you don't remember that thing that you wore yesterday, and like when you bought it and how much it was, and like, you know, what other colors it came in. Turns out that's like really good stuff that's not normal. It took me a while to kind of figure that out. So yeah, like, long story short, I had to shop for a whole new wardrobe because I got into Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. Those of you who grew up in warm climates and then had to move to a cold climate for the first time, like I did, you have to buy, you know, coats and scarves.
Thicker things.
Yeah. And, you know, I went to thrift stores because I didn't have a lot of money. I found amazing vintage. And Eric was actually the one that suggested, like, why don't you try to sell some of this stuff? And, you know, eBay wasn't so exciting for me, but like the idea of building a website seemed kind of cool. So I like taught myself Photoshop, and, you know, I think I used Microsoft like Front Page to design the first version of the site. Like, we just like hacked it onto an open source shopping cart, and it was, yeah, kind of nuts, but it was really fun. And as I kept, you know, as I was an undergraduate, I was a business and German double major, honestly, because I didn't even know that you could work in the fashion industry. Like, I just thought you can be a designer, or you can, I don't know, like work at a store. And I was like, I don't know that I want to do either of those things, and I'm not sure that I can really draw. But so yeah, I had no idea that like what I was doing was gonna be able to turn into something that I could actually grow. But yeah, I mean, I was at school between 2002 and 2006, and Facebook launched. You know, like the world was changing, and my business started to really gain traction. And honestly, for me, it's like, it's always been, you know, my job's gone from doing everything to, you know, now today I like get to, you know, I've been able to kind of create my dream job. And when I say that, I mean like 29 days out of the month, it's like, this is my dream job. And then I have the one day where I'm like, oh my God, who put me in charge? This is insane. I just want to like get back into bed and pull the covers up. But I think everyone goes through that, kind of no matter, you know, where they are, and
Absolutely.
whether they're running a tiny startup in a big company or running their own thing, or just, you know, trying to like, you know, proceed in life.
We all
Yeah.
have our bad days.
Yeah.
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 But at least I think in wearing ModCloth, I would look good having a bad day.
That's true. I would hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bri, you had mentioned that your mom is your co-founder.
Yeah.
Will you talk to us a little bit about what life is like having your mom as your co-founder?
Sure. I mean, it's difficult, right? Because you always have a mother-daughter dynamic. Sometimes she's just going to say no, and eventually you're going to win, but you just have to let her think that she's winning for a while. But no, in all honesty, it's great. And I think people are very taken aback by that we've done this now for 2 years together, and you know, it hasn't come to blows. But no one wants to see you succeed more than your parents. And there's no one who you want to make prouder than your parents. So I think there's definitely a very powerful energy there. And if you have that relationship with, you know, your mother or your father or someone in your family, and you can make it work, then I think it's a really powerful and beautiful thing.
So a few of you had touched on, you know, you'd mentioned that you were a lawyer before. You said you were kind of naturally attuned to the world of curating. You had a curatorial eye. So when you know, jumped into taking an idea and building a company, did you have to have a bunch of things in place before you made the leap? Or did you make the leap and then everything kind of came to you? How did that work?
I guess, are you, I'll actually, so I'll address that, because I think a lot of times one of the things that had frustrated me earlier when I was at Gap, it's like everyone talks about doing something different and like waking up in the middle of the night and just kind of like pivoting and knowing what you're supposed to do. And I think for me, it was such a gradual process of like, I have an idea, I think I can do it. No, I don't think I can do it. And then I'll like find out more information. Then I'm like, yes, I can do it. And then it's like, no, I can't do it. And I find out more information. I'm like, actually, I can. So it's just like very gradual, incremental process of learning what I needed as I went, just like taking one step at a time, finding the confidence to take the next step.
Yeah.
And then eventually you get to this point where you're like, I've done all of these things that I never thought were possible when I just like look back. And I think this is the time for me to actually take the biggest step and to take the biggest risk. But I've done a lot of my homework, and I found like my footing, and now I can actually move forward.
Yeah.
I feel really similar. I think the biggest struggle and battles you have, especially in the first year or two of the business, and maybe the year leading up to the business, is just having the confidence to do it. Like I thought about StyleSeat for 2 years before I started the company, and there was always, I just never believed that I could do it. It was like, everyone I know is so much smarter than me. All these guys are engineers and I'm not, so I can't do it. Or, you know, they're more analytical than me, and so it's not my skill set. Like I should just pack up and go home. And then finally I woke up one day and I was like, if someone else starts this company, it's not me. I'm gonna lose my, I'm gonna freak out and I'm gonna regret that really, really, really deeply. That will be the biggest regret of my life. You know, trying it and falling on my face and failing in front of everyone is less, like, that's not as bad as not doing it and having someone else do it. And now, like, I feel like through the state of the business, it continues to be that way where, okay, now we have to raise a Series A. I don't know if I can do this. This seems impossible, and then you do it. Or we have to go recruit a really big executive, or we have to go sign a massive deal with a big company. And then a bunch of those happen, and then you get to this point where you're like, anything that gets thrown at me, you know, I know that I can try my best to get it done, and I'm not fearful of it anymore.
Yeah.
And that's been like the biggest transformation, I think, for me. That's been like the biggest gift of running a company, is that I know now, like, no matter what happens, like, it can't get as dark as it did, you know, in the beginning stages of starting the company.
Yeah, totally. And something you said, I think you said, like, you're scared of going out there and, like, falling flat on your face. And, like, one of the biggest learnings for me has been, even when you're, like, I mean, this is cliche, but, like, there are no overnight success stories. Like, you will fall flat on your face even as you succeed. That's part of succeeding, is failing. And, like, we talk about this in, you know, building technology quickly, and, like, you know, this is like a kind of general life lesson that is easy to understand intellectually, I've found, but is hard to internalize and actually, like, put into practice. But yeah, so it's like, I don't know, I think as like 5 years ago in my career, I would look at those dudes who have, you know, very successful companies. You know, like, let's just say, am I allowed to say Zuckerberg is here? Okay.
It's not about
I mean,
here.
he's like the same age as me. He was at the same year at school, right? So I'm like, oh man, you know, like, I'm not him.
You're not
right?
a billionaire by 23
I'm
or
not,
whatever.
but I'm doing pretty good. You know, so it's like you do always kind of look around and you're like, oh man, like, I'm not doing it right because I'm not this successful. But then as it starts to happen to you, you're like, oh right, like, it is running and falling and running and falling.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, you just say, okay, I'm not going to be on this track anymore. I'm going to do something else. And that is life. Like, that's in business, like, you know, professionally, personally.
And there's been a lot of times in my life where maybe a company came out after us and they had this big press story or this big seemingly public success.
Yeah.
And I would beat myself up and say they raised their round faster, they got to traction faster. What could I, you know, and I'd really just beat myself up, and then that company wouldn't be around a year later.
Yeah.
And, like, that happened a bunch of times. And I mean, I guess the point is, like, you can't compare yourself to others because you have no idea what's happening underneath the scenes. You can just concentrate on yourself and run forward.
Yep.
So one of the things that came up when we were having our prep panel conversation is I was sharing a life lesson that I try to live by, but is also difficult, which is I am not my work is something I do. And that's really hard when you have this passion and you need to birth this company into the world. Are you able to, and it sounds like it might be a little bit difficult, but to detach your self-worth from your company so that if it's having a hard day, you could say, hard day, we're putting that over here. I'm actually gonna go to Pilates and I'm gonna rock the crap out of Pilates. You know, like, I'm gonna be good, you know, and you take care of yourself. So can you do that when you're running a company where, you know, all bets are off and you are, like, having to meet investor need?
So I was actually thinking about that a lot, because it's like, you're so passionate about what you're doing. How do you not get so consumed by it and then just get dragged down when the going gets really tough? And I think it's really important to maintain those other sides of yourself. Yes, I'm a founder. Yes, I'm an innovator, right? I'm a creator. But then I'm also a traveler. I'm also, like, a cook. I'm a reader, right? I think it's the balance. You can't ever detach yourself from the company that you've created and what you've built, but you can balance it out by identifying deeply with those other sides of yourself so you don't just get so consumed by one thing.
Yep.
I was incapable of it. I think it took me like 4.5 years to finally have an identity for myself outside of the business. Like, even taking time to like work out, for example. Like now, I wake up at 5:45. I go to the gym immediately. I work out, pretty intensely, and I don't do that. It took me a while to say I'm going to sleep early. I'm only gonna do 2 work dinners a week because I need to go to sleep early so I can wake up and I can do this and be a sane person. But I'm a better founder, right? Because I do those things, and I want my team to do those things for themselves. So I'm setting, a bad example if I don't take care of myself.
One of my favorite things that you do to take care of yourself is?
Yeah, so this is something that similarly, it took me a really long time to figure out, because I think when you're a founder, or when you do anything that you're passionate about, whether you're starting it yourself or not, you kind of just feel like, oh, well, I will work harder and then it will be better. And so you don't allow yourself to take that time to recharge, when actually what you need to do is recharge, and then you can actually work harder. Like, you can't just keep going. And I think particularly when you're younger, earlier in your career, you feel like, I can just do it. And so it's like, so it's the whole like work smart, not hard thing, I think is really applicable. And like, you have to take care of yourself so that you're a better team member, you're a better boss, you're a better, family member, like be more present. And one of the things that I do that I started in the last, probably like 2 years now, is I've like discovered this like passion for aerial arts. So I do flying trapeze and trampoline. That's why I have all these like thick bruises right now.
It's because you flung yourself.
Because and it's like the most incredible thing, and it's not for everyone. Come talk to me about it after if you are interested. We can go together. It's not for everyone, but I do encourage everyone to find something like that does. I mean, you just, if I'm at the office and I have like a 6 o'clock class, I leave, I go, I fly for an hour. It's like extremely aerobic and it's challenging and it's scary, but I do it anyway. And then I'm like, okay, like I couldn't think about anything else during that hour, and now I'm ready to like go back. I can choose to go back to work if I want to. If my body is telling me, you shouldn't go back to work yet, you're still stressed out even after doing all that stuff, I can like just, call a friend or do something that will, kind of help me get there, or just go to bed early. Like, sleep is so important, so important.
And I think one of the reasons that we forsake self-care is because it seems really aggressive. Like, it seems like something that's going to take a lot of time that we have to do so persistently and diligently, which we definitely should, but sometimes it just takes little things.
Yep.
Like, sometimes I'll feel like garbage and I say, I have not had any water today. Just drink a glass of water, go for a walk, get up and stretch. I bought this thing called a sun lamp. And if you live in the Bay where it's always kind of dark and gloomy, it's awesome. It emanates the sun in your office or your house, and my coworkers will come in and be like, it's like the beach in here. And I'm like, yeah, exactly, and it's awesome. So there's a lot of little things for self-care, I think, that we can do too that makes it seem less overwhelming, and maybe we can kind of subscribe to.
Yeah, I was actually so bad at drinking water. There's actually an app for that. You can look it up in the Google Play Store. I think it's like Drink Water or something. And so every hour there's a sound that goes off on my phone. What freaks people out is that it sounds like a toilet flushing. So maybe don't have it up as high as I do, but I then describe to people how important it is for me to be drinking water. And so the water bottles that you have at your tables, definitely fill those up with water or coffee or whatever, actually I don't know, might burn you. But double check me. But having water is actually just like this basic need, that you can do to take care of yourself, because when you get super stressed out and you're like in it, you literally forget to take care of yourself. So I'm so thankful that you shared a lot of these tips. Okay, so you went to trapeze, you feel super strong, you're feeling good, you did the self-care, you meditated a little bit. Now you're stepping into your company and you have the next big project you need someone to ship, or your team to follow your vision. How do you convince a team of people to follow you that way?
I think, so for me, my personal style, and I think this is like one of the most interesting things about running a company, is that you get, leadership training, you're just thrown into figuring out how to be a leader and a manager. For me, it's about working hard and just being very honest, even when it feels very uncomfortable. Because for me, it is like I do feel kind of awkward. Like I'm not like I can't wait to get in front of 30 people and talk to them. Or I mean, you guys
With
are
your
really
Superwoman
lovely.
pose.
Yeah, I do that. So like at my company and doing external stuff like this, but I care so much about it, and I care about like I've seen women that have inspired me. So I come in, I like get over my fear, and I do this because I want to help other people. So like similarly, for me to like kind of rally the troops, rally the team, it's just, expressing how passionate I am about it, and just, like putting that out there and being vulnerable, like, oh my God, you guys, I'm so excited about this. This is amazing. Even if I sound really dumb and I just said, oh my God, like 4 times, if you're at ModCloth, like that is something, that's why you're there, because you like saw me at some point. Or you saw people that I've hired that have kind of brought that same energy. So for me, it's really just like being vulnerable and putting it out there, and looking around and making sure that others are coming with me.
I think in the beginning, most people are excited. So I think the hard part comes when you're 6 weeks in and you're shipping in 8 weeks, and it seems like it's not going to happen, and everyone's kind of panicking. And so we try to celebrate kind of the little wins along the way, because it's those nuggets that when you're in that panic kind of carry you through.
Absolutely.
So a fun thing that we do is every sort of piece of positive customer feedback we put in this giant mason jar that we call a gratitude jar. And so when you're feeling horrible, you can read something sweet that a customer says, and it kind of gives you, just a little pick-me-up to kind of get through the next step and make sure that you make those ship deadlines.
Yeah.
I think being really data-driven and transparent is kind of where we come from. So, if people are like, why did we make this decision? Well, we made this decision because, let me give you what the options were. Let me tell you the data behind it. I know that might not be something that you wanted, but this is why we did it, and this is why it's in the greater good of the company. I think that goes a long way, especially with engineers.
Yeah. Yes. You got to know how to sell to the right audience.
Yeah, exactly.
Just think like what I'm hearing and what I experience, just like clear communication, knowing what your intent is, and just being authentic, just like being yourself. Like, hey, I'm scared about this also. I'm also nervous about running behind, but it is so important to the success of our customers, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're with meeting people where they're at and sharing your own experience.
Yep. So we're getting to the very end of our panel, and honestly, I can hang out with all these ladies up here, but I know that they also want to meet you at lunch. So last question, if you could have a mantra or a quote or a song lyric that takes you through the day or accurately describes what it's like to be a founder, what would you say that would be? So something inspirational, or something that's like, no, this is really founder life.
Okay, so my song lyric that I always mo money, mo problems. You always think more money, and then everything, especially when you're starting out, it's like, oh my God, if only I can just get to this fundraising, and then you do it, and then you're like, hold on, but now I have all this other stuff that I gotta do. So I say it, money is great, but mo money, mo problems. I just always remind myself that.
I think mine comes from like a teenage song, but it's like, it goes back to regret. It's like you only regret the things that you don't do. And then I think she's like, let's do what we want to do now. So.
Do you know who sang it?
It's like, I think this like artist called like Melanie C.
From the Spice Girls?
The Spice Girls?
Yeah. The solo work.
That's awesome.
And then she's like, don't let me like have more time to back out. So that's almost like push myself forward.
I was like a posh Spice, a little bit. But I think I'm now a Mel C advocate. I love that. Bri?
We got to do karaoke. We can
I know.
do some good
That's
Spice Girls.
again, that's another panel.
Yeah, some good Spice Girls jams. There's a Guapoli song called Closer, and there's a line that says, close your eyes and see what you believe.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful to me because I've always been a doer, not a dreamer. But as a startup founder, my journey has been learning how to think big and putting those things together, which has been.
I sing that song out loud a lot.
Yeah. Oh, it's
every time it comes on the radio, it's like.
Yeah, that's my jam.
Soulful. Yeah. Melanie?
Mine's a little less soulful. It's probably all I do is win by just staying calm. But I think it's not, the point of it is that I think one of the biggest reasons that we're still here, I think about me and my co-founder, is resiliency. Mm-hmm. Like no matter how hard it gets, it's gonna get harder, it's still gonna be hard. When you think that you can't move forward, you just gotta do it, you have to win, because there's everything at stake. And so like listening to that just kind of reminds you like, all right, we don't have a choice, we have to do it.
And if someone wants to make a playlist and share that out, that'd be helpful. So that's all the time we have. I know, like I said, I would want to hang out with these ladies all day long, but we got other things to do. We got other women for you to meet. So can we have a round of applause for our panel?